to it, right echo, echo, clear for takeoff.
Sir, can you hear me? Going into cardiac arrest.
Going below, 305.
This is Second Shift.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Second Shift. Mike Cast along with Eric Bauer, and for a kind of a special episode, we're going to be talking to our old friend Ritu Sani. Dr. Sani, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm good, Mike. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I'm learning lots of stuff at my new job, and so it's been kind of busy. I was there super early this morning, and wow. I'm good.
So you're wearing your little firefighter hat, even.
Well, it's my IAFF hat. It's kind of cool.
It is cool.
Yeah,
Is that why you kind of seem grumpy? Is that why? Because you had to get up early?
Could be. You know what? Really, what it is?
I see it on your face.
I know what it is.
I went
the
to
two flips from the Oregon Ducks today. Two kids flipped to USC.
I don't even care. Yeah, I don't even pay attention to the recruiting. I really don't. I tried to get into it one year, but I just there's too much. All I know is we stole D'Anthony Thomas from USC a couple of years ago. In fact, I was just on my time hop or whatever in 2011. Some skinny kid from LA decided to go to Oregon, and turns out he was kind of a good player. So
yeah, he turned out.
Yeah, he turned out okay. So, but I went to the gym yesterday. I got this whole thing going, and my son is Caleb. He's 17. He's like, let's go down and pump some weights and get all swole. That's what he told me. Get all swole up. And I said, okay, I'm down with that. Personally, I'm hanging on kind of the treadmill elliptical. That's kind of my world right now. But I said, all right, I'll go down there. He's going to the gym. That was good. He does it at school, and well, I'll tell you. Yeah. If you haven't been on the free weights for a while, you kind of need to work into that a little bit. So I just did some squats and stuff, and man, I'll tell you, I'm every step today I was hating life. So anyway, that's my pain. So, how's Eric doing?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's been warm the last couple of days. It's been 70 degrees.
Gosh.
I mean, this weather, I tell you.
Global warming. It's happening. Yeah, so anyway, what we thought we'd do, I saw Ritu at a meeting the other day, and we were talking about this Protecting Patients' Access to Emergency Medications Act of 2016, and we're going to break this down for you. But I want everyone to pay attention for a minute, because there's going to be an action item. If you're listening to this podcast, there's going to be you're an EMS provider, whether you're an EMS doc, a medical director. I know lots of medical directors listen to our podcast. I'm just saying that. I know a couple do. But you're going to have an action item, and we're going to learn a little bit about. So we've actually talked about this before. We just hit on it a little bit, but this is kind of an important thing that's coming up. So, we decided to have Ritu come on here, and we're going to talk about this legislation that's kind of going through there and what we need to do as EMS providers to make sure that we're going to make a difference. So did I tee that up good enough for you, Ritu?
Yeah, no, you did great.
All right. So why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of maybe what's going on with this legislation, how it came about, and kind of where we're going. So
sure.
Take it.
Kind of talk about kind of how we got here first.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and of course, I've been sick for like 3.5 weeks, so I'm coughing and got my little tea and all that stuff. But anyway, so
anyway, okay.
So the Controlled Substances Act, which is like the main piece of federal legislation that manages controlled substances. It creates the DEA. It gives them all their enforcement stuff. It's a big, thick, fat piece of legislation. And it was written in 1970. So 2 years before Johnny and Roy showed up on television. Yeah. That is sort of the infrastructure for kind of how controlled substances are managed. Now, I always ask people when I talk about this topic, I ask, who's read the DEA's regulations on controlled substances for EMS?
Exactly.
And there's always some nimrod
that raises his hand.
No, I'm not even gonna say it. There's always some guy. I was gonna poke fun at a good friend, but I chose not to.
Okay.
And there's always a guy who's like, "Oh, I've read those.
Right, I know it.
We
Back and
follow them very closely, or something." And I feel bad because, hey, dude, you just fell right into my
right.
trap.
You totally set them up.
The reality is that there's no EMS specific rules or regulations, and so when you when your EMS agency says it's the DEA rule for this and that, what's happening is the rules specific to hospitals or pharmacies or whatever are being sort of crafted and managed and sort of being widgeted onto your service. So everybody's like, oh, well, we have to have double lock. Well, you don't have to have a double lock because nowhere does it say anything that an ambulance has to have it, because there's no specific rules for an ambulance.
So it's just always been inferred that we need to follow the established rules, which don't clearly apply to EMS, but we kind of glom onto everything like we always do.
Right, and so what's happened as a result of that is total inconsistent application of the rules throughout the country. So in some spots in the country, if you receive controlled substances and then distribute them, you can see my air quotes, hopefully the people can hear them, to the rest of your service, you are a distributor. And then your EMS agency has to follow the rules of being not a provider, but a distributor, which in terms of things like security, I mean, it's kind of could be construed by some as over the top. But again, that's just the local DEA office saying, well, you distribute them, so now you're a distributor. It's not based on anything else, any kind of rules or anything like that.
And so is there inconsistency into which the local DEA offices were handling either inspections or whatever it is they come out and do?
Exactly, and we've had a couple of crises based around that. I mean, agencies where the DEA showed up. In some states, there is such a thing as an ambulance DEA license, and it's lumped in with mid-level providers. So it's the same DEA license as a nurse practitioner or a PA. And Texas is a state like that. And in one of the agencies in Texas, they showed up because the DEA showed up and said, "We've never had a PA order a flat of morphine before," and it was because the fire department ordered it's a urban fire department.
Right. They ordered a pallet full.
A pallet. I meant to say a pallet of
I
morphine.
what you're saying.
Right. So the application has been sort of all over the board. The other kind of side item which this bill addresses is that in most states, it's not the agency that gets the DEA number. It's the medical director.
Medical director, yeah.
So, I am the medical director for my Lake Oswego Fire Department, and the DEA for Lake Oswego is in my name. My good friend RJ Frascone, who is a medical director in St. Paul, Minnesota, he has 33 separate DEA numbers because he's got a DEA number for every service, every agency that he's the medical director for. What's even worse is that in some areas the DEA has said, well, you don't need a DEA number for your agency. You need a DEA number for every site that has controlled substances. So every station or ambulance or helicopter or helicopter base needs its own DEA number. So again, you have this kind of miss, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, the DEA kind of said, hey, we're going to write a set of EMS specific rules. And they were pretty cool about it, and I give them props, right? So,
did they seek input from various associations and groups?
Absolutely. So their peeps went to the ASEP meeting and met with the ASEP EMS committee. And then they came to the NEMSP conference last year in New Orleans when I was president. Yeah. And they came to a meeting in my suite, and they sat down with me and our executive committee, and we spent about 2 hours talking about kind of how controlled substances work in EMS. Yeah. You've seen one EMS system, right? But And so we tried to talk about some of the variation. A lot of times they would ask us, like, how do you do this and how do you do that? And we'd tell them, and their eyes would get really big. And we thought we were getting, outfitted with orange jumpsuits by the end. But, so I give them props for that. Well, then they said, look, when we read the law, this 1970 law passed by Congress, it says specifically that every order for a controlled substances has to have a patient-specific order or prescription.
So translated, that creates a problem with standing orders.
The next said that, which means that standing orders are illegal. So they, I can see the look on your face, Eric.
Just going through my.
Yeah. So they said, oh, we haven't ever, you don't see us pulling over ambulances today and doing that. But, you just need to know that when we write a set of rules, we're not going to be able to set a set of rules that allow for standing orders. We're going to have to say that standing orders are not allowed unless the Controlled Substances Act changes. And we followed up with them with a conference call, and they kind of said the same thing. And I will say, to their credit, again, they weren't saying, we got you now.
Right,
you can't do that.
They were just trying to fix the whole problem.
This is what the law says. So the only way to fix it, you got to change the law. And the only way to change the law is to have a bill that goes through Congress, and I'm just a bill on Capitol Hill.
Oh yeah,
all that stuff. Yeah. So that's kind of how we got where we are. We had I think a good faith effort by the DEA, and I think smart regulation of the controlled substances, I think, would create a set of best practices, would create a set of single expectations that we all will meet in the EMS industry. So I think having a set of EMS specific rules is not a bad thing. Mm-hmm. And in fact, most of the folks in EMS agree, because they're tired of somebody new showing up in town and telling them they got to get a distributor license today. Yeah. But nobody wants to be in a place where you have to call to get orders for controlled substances, just because we know.
Yeah, and I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I think.
No, go ahead.
I think some people think that we're talking just about giving fentanyl to somebody with a broken arm, but really, when you think of the whole of controlled substances, this might be, I need to give something for a pediatric seizure. Who's going to die unless we get this seizure stopped, right?
That's exactly right. So benzodiazepines are included. Ketamine, if you're a place using ketamine for agitated delirium or pain. It's not just fentanyl for a little bump. Yeah. And then, even if it is fentanyl or morphine, if you've got a guy with a massive big femur fracture, and you're in rural Oregon, and we have great cell service all throughout rural Oregon, right?
Absolutely.
So it's no problem calling and just getting an order for 100 of fentanyl or 8 of morphine. Yep. That's if you're going to move somebody. I think it's all those things. It is pain medicine, but it's the benzos. It's post-intubation medications. Yeah. It's some serious life-threatening stuff.
Yeah. What were you going to say, Eric?
I'm just at a loss. I'm just absolutely at a loss of words. I really, do they understand the magnitude of this?
I think they do.
I'm going through my head. This is probably one of the biggest things that I could think of that could ever happen to the pre-hospital environment ever.
Yeah. It steps backwards.
Yeah, it would destroy clinical care. Yeah. But destroy might be a strong word, but it would really harm patient outcome. Yeah, do I think that they understand it? I think they do, to some degree, and I think that's why we haven't seen a set of rules yet. That's just speculation on my part. But in January of 2015, they told us that, to expect to see a draft set of rules by the summer, and we haven't seen one yet. Now, I've heard rumor that we might see some soon, but we've still not seen a notice in the Federal Register. We've gotten no indication that they're happening. So I think I think they understood. We also, as part of our advocacy efforts, as we were educating Congress on this, we asked the Senator Grassley and Representative Hudson, we asked them to inquire with the DEA where these rules are, and we asked them to tell the DEA that that they were planning legislation around this area. They can't tell the DEA what to do. They're Congress. They write laws and they appropriate money. They can't tell the administration whether or not to put these rules out. But I think giving a heads up that these rules are coming is was part of what we asked them to do, and we know that they did and reached out.
So, and then that kind of, I guess, brings us to HR 4365, right? Is that a fair jump, or did we skip something?
No, I think that's a fair jump. I mean, I think what is to get from that meeting in January to HR 4365. Number one, to do that, to get a bill kind of dropped in less than 6 months, 8 months, is actually pretty freaking amazing.
Yes.
And I give all the props to our lobbyists, our Lisa Toffel and Miranda Franco from a company called Hall and Knight. But we started visiting our congressmen or various members of Congress. Made many trips to D.C. You always heard me, when I saw one to D.C. And some of those were for meetings. But anytime I went to D.C. for anything, we tacked on trips to Congress to talk about this issue. And we ended up, Representative Hudson from the Charlotte area, Charlotte, North Carolina, expressed a real interest in this issue. And so we met multiple times with his LA legislative aide that was assigned to work on this issue, Preston, and talked to him on the phone and really sat down, and Representative Hudson was really, passionate about this. So worked with them, and they got this bill introduced in the second week of January.
And so Representative Hudson is the sponsor of the bill. Is that right?
Yeah, he's the sponsor, and then we had 6 original co-sponsors on top of it. 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans. This is not a partisan issue. And then the way it works, there are committees of jurisdiction. So we were very strategic about it, and Representative Hudson was. And so 2 of the sponsors are on Energy and Commerce, which is one of the committees. 2 of the sponsors are on Judiciary, which is the other sort of House committee. And then 2 of the sponsors are individuals who are physicians who have interests in this space. Representative Heck, Joe Heck, who's actually an old friend of mine, is a former EMS medical director who represents Nevada, just outside of Vegas, and is running for Senate. And then Representative Ruiz is an emergency physician from California who's a Pittsburgh guy like me.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So graduated, and I got a chance to sit and talk to him for about an hour a few weeks ago about this, and he's 100% supportive. So, you get the co-sponsors, and then the bill is introduced, but, only 15% of all bills make it out of a committee, only 6% pass one chamber, and only 3% ever make it all the way to a law. So there's still, this is just the start of the journey, and, there's a lot to do, and I think that's part of what we're here to talk about, kind of the next step.
Yeah. So if I'm an EMS provider, stateside here in the U.S., because I know some folks listen to us abroad.
They're laughing, right? They're like, what?
I know. They're probably laughing and dumbfounded as much as Erica's sitting there. I've had my ears up on this matter a little bit just because of my proximity to you and many of the other medical directors that are kind of running our circle. So I've kind of been aware of this for some time now. But what... maybe you could talk a little bit about NAEMSP and the advocacy program and
Sure.
And kind of what they do and maybe let people know that, and this isn't necessarily a plug for NAEMSP. We've had to say that like every time we talk because you're the immediate past president. But I want people to know that, when somebody joins, yeah, you get some of the benefits of doing that, but it also helps things like this get off the ground. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're fairly new at advocacy, and I think that as leaders and patient care folks, we have a responsibility. My friend Brent Meyer said this at our national conference. We have an absolute responsibility to advocate for the wellness and health care of our patients. And so what does that mean? And we're going to talk about advocacy at various conferences around the state and stuff like that. But it's the idea that you reach out to those parts of government that impact your patients and let them know how they're impacting the patients. I used to be in government, right? I used to be the state medical director, and I would meet with these folks, and what I often heard is, you folks in Salem, like, well, number one, my office ain't in Salem, it's in Portland, okay? Yeah. But so which then is worse for like a lot of people. Oh, you're in the People's Republic of Portland, that's even worse.
Oh yeah.
But you people in the EMS office are you're sitting in your ivory tower and you don't listen to us. And I'm like, and God bless, these are hardworking, well-meaning people. Mm-hmm. But I'm like, look, number one, where are we having this conversation? In the firehouse in Southern Oregon or in Eastern Oregon, where I came to you to sit and talk to you to hear this. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you're here. And number two, my email is posted everywhere possible. I can't. Government can't make a decision without information. Government, and no noise. No, if you don't hear anything, then everything's fine.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right. And so if something pops up on the radar that is just a bad idea, all right. I mean, so I'll put it this way. I mean, if you were sitting in a committee that had to deal with, I don't know, the rules of the trucking industry, would you be able to pass a law based on a trucking industry without talking to somebody from the trucking industry?
No, of course not.
No. So why do we expect our legislators to pass good laws around healthcare without talking to healthcare people? Mm-hmm. Well, the only way they can talk to healthcare people is if you show up and talk to them. Yeah. And I'll tell you that I personally have visited with I've visited with congressmen and senators and their aides, and every single time I give them a piece of information, and local legislators, I give them a piece of information about how healthcare works, how the emergency department runs. They're like, wow, I didn't know that. Thank you. And so that's kind of the responsibility we have. And I think we all have that as an individual level. And what is powerful is when a number of individuals all rise up with the same message.
Right. And I think that's where the term grassroots comes from, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I think this is a great grassroots campaign, so to speak, if you will, for EMS providers to reach out to their representatives and try to get this message across and inform people about the people that matter that can make these decisions for us.
And these things, when you call your congressman, when you call their office or you send an email, they keep track. And if they suddenly see like a blip of 10, 12, 15 calls on a certain topic, then they kind of say, whoa, what's that question? And so they start looking into it. And this is a white hat issue. This is like there's nobody against this. I'll tell you that the list of organizations that support this bill is anybody and everybody in EMS. And I'm really proud that I helped work on a bill that the International Association of Firefighters, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and the American Ambulance Association, along with NASEMSO and NAMT, they all have written letters of support. So this has had, global EMS sort of support.
Yeah, well, it's got global implications.
Absolutely, it would really crush everybody's operations. So what do you do? Well, first of all, you know what? I didn't actually tell anybody what the bill does, and so maybe we ought to do that.
Okay.
It's a super. It's not the it's not the Affordable Care Act. It's not 2,473 pages or whatever.
Yeah.
It's like 7 pages. And the reason why it's 7 pages is because it turns out when you look at a bill, bills are in like really big font. I don't know why. It's good though. I get to read them without wearing my glasses, so it works for me.
Eric can probably read it too.
That's right. So it does 5 things. Number one, it and kind of most importantly, it allows the medical director to use standing orders for EMS personnel to deliver controlled substances. So that's the kind of the impetus. It also does a few other things to sort of straighten out some of the stuff. It removes this idea that the physician as a individual is responsible. Responsible for their DEA. It says that the agencies will register directly with the DEA. And so, we were worried that the group that represents private ambulance, the American Ambulance Association, would be like, we don't want this.
We don't want that. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's some, and they're great folks. Some of their leadership, one of their board members, Sean Baird. Sean.
Oh.
He's here just south of me, and we definitely have a frosty beverage together now and again to talk about these issues. And they stepped up and they said, "No, we believe this is our responsibility. We think it's been stupid all along that the physician medical director is the one. We're responsible for these medications. We order them, we store them, we're responsible. We think it's fine that we're the registrant." So that was great. It also says that you can't require an agency to have more than one registration per state. So no more registering every ambulance or helicopter or base in a state. It also, cool enough, says that to be a registrant, for an EMS agency to register, you have to have a physician medical director. So it's the first time in federal law that an EMS physician medical director is required, and we're kind of excited about that. And then it requires them to have specific rules around the receipt, movement, storage of controlled substances in EMS. So we have one set of rules that we're playing by, rather than this kind of nebulous square peg, round hole thing that we have now. So it does 5 things. And they're all, again, I don't think anybody disagrees with them. I think that the idea that EMS agencies carry controlled substances and give them to patients on protocols, which sounds like it happens about a bajillion times a day, makes total sense. I think the idea that you give everybody a set of standard rules and best practices to follow makes total sense. So that's what the bill does.
That's a lot of information. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty. So what can every EMS provider that listens, shares, whatever, this podcast, what can the average EMS provider do to affect change in this particular situation?
So there's a couple of things. Number one, contact your member of Congress. Contact them tomorrow, today, whenever you get done listening to this. If you go to our website at namsp.org, on the front page there is a you can do two ways. One, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a tab for advocacy. Mm-hmm. You can click on that. Or there is on the front page itself a link to what we're calling our 4365 toolkit. And when you go to that page, it gives you a few things. It gives you a sample kind of letter that you can cut and paste from. Would always recommend that you kind of personalize it. Yeah. You don't just send the same thing. But it gives you all the pertinents are in there. It also gives you a telephone script, so you can call the office. And then these are effective things to do. So email and call. Don't write.
Like snail mail?
No snail mail.
And why is that?
Because it turns out that it has to go through the anthrax process. And according to our lobbyists, it takes 4 to 5 months for snail mail to get to an office.
There you go. So email or telephone call.
Yeah. And then on that page is also a list of all of the members of the House of Representatives and their who their legislative aide is involved in charge of healthcare. So you can do this a couple ways. You can go to congress.gov and put in your zip code, and it'll tell you who your member is, and then you go to their webpage and put the stuff in, or you can just use your regular email and send a letter to the legislative aide. I can tell you that as a person who holds a leadership position at an AMSP in the state, I not only sent it to the member of Congress that represents where I live, I also sent it to the member where I work because it's a different member.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And I sent it to actually everybody in Oregon because I said I'm a leader in the NAMSP Oregon, and have had response from a couple. So, but the more blips that they're getting, the more interest it will generate.
I just want to just real quick just interject is that I don't want people to think they have to be a member of NAEMSP to go and do this. I mean, any EMS provider, your medical director, you don't necessarily have to be a member of NAEMSP to accomplish this. So we're also going to put a link to this in the show notes at FlightBridgeED.com. So make sure you go there and go to the podcast section, and then I have sent Eric that link already, and he'll throw that in there. So a couple of different ways.
Yeah. Then the one other thing. I mean, so a lot of our professional associations do advocacy, not just NAMSP. NAEMT is another great organization that you can join if you're a EMS provider as well as if you're a medical director. I belong. But they have an event called EMS on the Hill Day. So you can attend EMS on the Hill Day in April, and hopefully this bill will be one of the items that you that when you do these Hill visits will be the ask. We don't know. We haven't heard for sure yet, but that's what we've requested. And if you've never been to EMS on the Hill Day, if you've never done a congressional visit, I would really highly recommend it. It changes Congress is still Congress, and whatever party or whatever, there are a lot of problems, but it does change your view of Congress. I mean, you walk around, you go through one medical detector, one metal detector, and the next thing you know, you're walking around, and I'm like, dude, that's my senator standing right there. It was a little, and you talk to them, and they listen to you, and they take a lot of meetings, but the accessibility level is actually pretty impressive.
Yeah, it is. I would agree with that. I had the chance. I was a class of 2004 for Star of Life for American Ambulance Association. So I had a chance to go through there and meet with. I saw lots of people there, and it really what it basically does is it gets your focus from what's right in front of you as far as EMS to really zooming out and giving you a 10,000-foot level of what's important to us as a whole versus just what's important to me and my agency. So at least that was my thought, being kind of a rookie with that. But you're right. I mean, I had a couple meetings in hallways because people are busy, but nonetheless, they're still there and they will totally listen to you. That's cool.
Yeah, and I think it's so. And I'll be at EMS on the Hill Day. And so come say hi. We'll have a drink.
There you go.
Yeah, it's all good. So reach out, and your congressperson doesn't know this exists until you tell them. Yeah. There are thousands. I mean, this bill number 4365. Yes, it was the 4,365th bill introduced in this congressional session. So there are thousands of bills out there. So the way to get, and I don't know if that's true. It just sounds really good.
It does sound good. But going.
There are thousands of bills out there, and so the way to get their attention is to reach out, call and write and email, and then don't expect an answer right away. And if you don't hear anything in a couple weeks, do it again. Or I haven't heard anything from a couple of folks. I'm going to call them next week. And if you hear good stuff, if somebody says they're going to sponsor it, let us know.
Cool. Well, I got to tell you, it's very eye-opening, and I think it's an important message. So again, your action items, if you're listening to this, and we're going to try to share this as much as we can on social media, and Facebook, and Twitter, and whatever else, LinkedIn, for sure, and tag it into those groups that are in all those different social media outlets so we can kind of get this word spread for people. But you definitely have an action item I know EMS fire people, we like to do our thing and then just kind of go back to sleep or whatever we're doing, but we need to actually take an extra 10 minutes and kind of do some work on this one. So what are your thoughts, Eric, on this whole thing? I know you've been sitting there, nodding your head, because this is I can tell it's a lot of new information, and it's kind of crazy.
Yeah, I'm just trying to take it in. I think, I'm definitely going to try to do my part. I'm going to put it on the blog and put it out to all the, we've got, I think, 1,300 people subscribed to that. So I'll put that out when we get off here, and it'll go out in the morning.
Awesome.
And
Great.
yeah, I guess I'm just blown away. I'm just thinking of the ramifications of this and just trying to kind of process it. I think this is really a travesty, and so yeah, I think we all have to band together and do our part. And we can't let this go.
Yeah.
I am a little shocked. That's why I'm a little quiet right now. So.
You are looking a little shell shocked. I gotta tell you.
These are. I'll be honest. This pisses me off. It really does. It's a shame, but we'll just have to. You guys have already done all the legwork, and so I think we all have to do our part. We have to send this out. I'll put this out on the FlightBridgeED podcast as well, and try to get some exposure.
Awesome. Cool.
Great.
Well, basically, guys, any parting words, Ritu, before we get on out of here with this special edition?
No, I want to thank both you guys for giving me the time to talk about this, and really just excited to see the EMS community mobilize, and we make a difference every single day out there, and this is another way to make a difference.
Absolutely. Cool. All right. Well, with that, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So on behalf of Dr. Ritu Sani, Eric Bauer, this is Mike Verkest coming to you with a special edition of The Second Shift, talking about HR 4365. So get out there, do your part, and you guys all have a great day, and make sure you share this podcast. All right, everybody, you guys have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time. Thanks.
Second Shift with Eric Bauer and Mike Verkest is a production of FlightBridgeED LLC. For more, visit FlightBridgeED.com.